Hi, I'm April Pendergraft, Director of Development and Membership for Maximum Fun. As you may know, we're working with National CASA GAL to provide ongoing support for their organization. Court-appointed Special Advocate, CASA, and Guardian Ad Litem, GAL, volunteers make a life-changing difference for children navigating the court and foster care systems. We'd like to highlight some folks from our own community who already work with this amazing nonprofit. Our Director of Business Operations, Stacey, Molski, and I are talking with a MaxFunster, who's also a court-appointed special advocate working with National CASA GAL. Her name is Katy. Thanks for joining us, Katy.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here and exciting that you all are shedding light on this important work.
Thank you. We're grateful that you're doing it. I wanted to start by asking if you would talk a little bit about how you discovered CASA GAL and what made you want to connect with them as a volunteer.
I had always been interested in advocating for children, and I actually saw a billboard advertising the CASA program in my area. So their billboards do work. People see them and are inspired by them. And the billboard said that they were looking for child advocates. And I thought, well, that might be a good fit because I see myself as an advocate. I'm not afraid to have tough conversations or be like the squeaky wheel and use my loud voice to support children. And the CASA program in my area holds information sessions to learn more about it. I'm sure most programs do. And after attending one, I felt that I could definitely do that work. And I applied. I attended about 40 hours of training as well as training mandated by my state. And then I was sworn in by a judge to begin this work.
So you just went for it. It sounds like you just went for it. Yes. We've talked to some folks who said, like, you know, you could ease into it. Like, you could volunteer for the organization at events and all kinds of things. But there's also the option to just go all in.
What was that info session like? Was it just a quick sort of, PowerPoint or, how much time did it take up just to learn a little bit more about the program?
I want to say it was anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay.
And it was really just very high level. This is what CASA is. This is what CASA looks like in this area. This is sort of the time commitment and what's required of you, and really talking through the application and training process. And that is a lot of time, and it's very rigorous, and it's focused on anti-racism and equity. And so it's sort of like giving you a taste of what you would be in for, especially over the next few months, as what to expect in the application, what to expect in training, the kind of things that will be brought up in training and be brought up while you're an advocate. And then I think that weeds out people who are maybe looking for sort of an easier volunteer experience, which is totally fine. No judgment. CASA is not for everyone.
That was really helpful to know. Some of that training I didn't realize was part of it.
Yeah. And like I said, I know I can only speak to what is in my area, but they're pretty upfront about the time commitment that it takes, not just to be a CASA, which can vary by your case, but the time it takes to train and why that training is so necessary to really prepare you for different situations. And really, it's about training your heart and mind to be able to fully accept and work with a child that likely has a different background than you, maybe not, and is going through something that you may not have been through. And so you do a lot of work on your mindset and your heart and your biases. So it's not only like technical training on types of situations, but it's really like, at least in my region, making sure that you are a fit to truly be an advocate for a child, not just that you can speak up in court or understand social services.
I might switch to one of our questions that we wanted to do a little bit later, just because you mentioned, how much time it takes to do this. And I was curious if you could just let us know about how much time you usually spend maybe per week when you're being a CASA.
Because of the nature of my case and the other providers, I make a lot more contact right now than I believe that some of the other volunteers do. I don't want to scare anyone when I say it is usually for me, about 5 hours a week. And that is a choice I make based on what I think is needed to move things along. Other people might do more. Other people might do less. And of course, every case also varies in the amount of time that it's open. So typically CASAs are meant to be with the child until they reach permanency. like their case closing. I know that that's not like a definitive answer, but that's just what I do.
No, it really helps. Yeah. Are there any, without of course getting too specific about individual cases and clients, are there any moments that especially have made you feel like I'm really happy to be doing this?
There have been times where I've been glad that CASA exists, that I was placed at the right time with this case. And there are times that I've been able to make things happen that I don't believe would be happening if there was not an adult assigned to basically like pay attention and follow up and not let anything fall through the cracks. So when I get discouraged, I think about, I don't think this would be happening, like good things that are moving the case along or beneficial to the children. When I think about like, oh, that's because CASA is involved, that gives me the drive to remember my why and like the energy to keep going, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It's sort of like focusing on the wins where you can get them.
Yeah. And remembering too that like you have to see it as a win, even if there are so many things about it that, well, it's just not good enough. Like I get that. So you have to focus on small steps forward, even when there's more steps back.
So maybe not, I'm happy to be doing this, but I am glad that I am here. Like I am glad that I am a person who is here.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice that you would give to MaxFunsters who are considering becoming a CASA volunteer?
People ask me this a lot, which is funny. There's always a need for CASA volunteers because unfortunately there are too many children in the foster care system and too many children experiencing neglect and abuse. So we know that to be true, and children deserve caring, dedicated, and I think relentless adults. I think that's an important characteristic of a CASA who will fight for them and speak up for them. So I would say like find out more. If anyone who has a little bit of free time, but a lot of heart, like just find out more about your region's CASA program. Don't assume that you need to be an educator or you need to work with kids or have experience working with kids. You don't. And you can work full time and be a CASA. I know people that do that. Every program's different and every case is different. And at least in my region, like the supervisor will work with you based on like your schedule and like what kind of case you should be matched with and all of that. But you could really make a huge difference in the life of a child. It really cannot be overstated. And this is obviously completely my own opinion and not an official opinion of CASA GAL, is I do think it is important for CASA to be committed to anti-racism and inclusivity and continuing on their journey of like uncovering and examining their own biases about race, class, gender, power, because you have to be able to communicate with people who are different than you, that may have different values than you, and you like judging them or seeing them with your own bias gets in the way of like compassion and service. One of my favorite quotes is from Father Greg Boyle of Homeboy Industries in Los Angeles. He has written a few books, and in one of them he writes about the answer to every question is compassion. And you have to be able to approach people in difficult situations with compassion and understanding. And you cannot do that if you have a preconceived notion about how they should be living, what they should be doing, what is the best parenting, what your mom did versus what this or, a people group or whatever. You really have to have a completely open heart and mind in order to truly, truly advocate what is best for the child, not what is best for you.
And sometimes even you may not even know that you harbor those ideas.
Yeah.
So it's really good to examine those regardless, I think.
Yeah, and that's
great. That's great advice in general, but also
just in life.
Especially for being
yeah,
but especially for being a CASA, I can see how it would be extremely necessary.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's my advice.
I think that's fantastic.
So now the fun question. We're really lucky to have a community of folks who like MaxFun shows and do good in the world. And as a MaxFunster, of course, I want to ask you what your favorite MaxFun shows are.
Yeah. So my husband and I have been listening to Mabim Bam for, I think, over like 10 years. We've gone to several of their tours. We're big fans of them. We've gotten several other family members to listen to it. We have like conversations about it. I can't talk about it without laughing. I die. Every time I think about this, I die. But they did this bit. If they listen to this, y'all, this bit they did a few years ago where they all sang Stacey's mom in a minor key. And it is... Oh my, I'm going to listen to that episode after this. It is...
Play that at my funeral.
The funniest... It's the funniest thing I've ever heard, ever. I called my sister-in-law crying. I was laughing so hard. Like, we're also definite Adventure Zone fans. And when Rose Buddies was on, I definitely did live watch meetups back in the day. And I'm still friends with a couple of people who... like we're doing those live Bachelor Watch. I don't even watch it now because Rose Buddies changed over. But like it was just such a fun thing at the time before that show got like different.
I love that. That's so characteristic of the MaxFun community is people becoming lifelong friends from like podcast listening parties or meetups.
But yeah, I've been listening to that since, and my husband's been listening to it since day one.
That's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah. Like every episode. So very big fans. You guys, this has been really great. Thank you so much.
It's been great to meet you. I think you're like obviously the perfect person to be a CASA, but we're really grateful to have you. And I'm not saying that for the record or anything. Like for the interview, I just genuinely feel like we're really grateful to have you in the community.
Thank you so much
for taking your time to do this.
Yeah, of course. Katy. Yeah, it's not easy, y'all. I don't want to be super discouraging like during my interview, but
yeah. When you were talking about it, it made me think of, I mean, this is obviously not the same thing, but you know, it's still in a court, but it made me think of when I was on jury duty for a really challenging case, and it was like extremely upsetting every day. And I would come home and cry, but the whole time I was like, I feel like it is right that I am here, and like I'm glad I am here and can contribute to trying to resolve something. That was the only time I've obviously never had an experience like being a CASA volunteer, but it seems like that same sort of emotion.
Yeah, I'm always reminded like, yeah, that's like why I do what I do is because there has to be a person doing this. So why can't it be me? I just the reason I keep doing it is I return to like, I'm the person holding that child's story, and like maybe no one else knows all the pieces. And I certainly don't know all the pieces of the children I work with, but I think I have a more complete picture than almost any other provider.
I really love how you phrase that as holding their story. I think that is a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, something that we do in my region is CASA's provide a report to the judge. Like we're seen as the judge's eyes and ears, and it's really my honor to provide that because it's an entire history of like everything that's happened, and like kids, especially kids like going from place to place, like. They might not have a baby picture. They might not have their vaccination records. You know what I mean? Like no one knows that they haven't been to the dentist in 3 years or something. You know what I mean? Whatever. Yeah. So it's like, I feel like I've made it my business to be in their business because it's like, well, who else is gonna be? You know? Yeah, you guys should look into being CASAs. You can do it.
I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot from you, and it sounds rewarding, if not hard, but I just think what you do is wonderful, and I really appreciate that you're doing it, and that every CASA out there is doing it.
Yeah. I will say one note about the rewarding piece, though, because I want people to understand that, like, you will likely not achieve a place where you're like, and that is wrapped up, and all is well. Something we learned, something we talked about a lot, and this isn't the case for every case, but something we talked about a lot that I want to make sure people hear is like accepting non-closure, and that you have to be okay with you're probably not going to find out what happens. That being said, different regions will assign different style cases. And so you might actually get to see a lot of like great moments that's like families reunified, cases closed, adopted, whatever. But you might not. And you have to be okay with both.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, Katy. And thank you for doing the work that you do. I hope that a lot of folks listening to this will check out CASA because of what you've said.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I'm just so excited that Maximum Fun is getting the word out there. A lot of people don't know enough about CASA or just have never considered it, but definitely look into it. It can be just a really big moment in a child's life to have an adult to advocate for them. So thank you for spreading the word. It means a lot.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to share your story about being a CASA volunteer, email me, April, at april@maximumfun.org. To find out more about National CASA GAL and ways that you can help, visit nationalcasagal.org. That's nationalcasagal.org.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned, audience supported.